Hey, my name is McKenna, and on this episode, we are going to be talking about what ayahuasca is and how it significantly helps depression. I've drank ayahuasca numerous times in the last 16 months, and it has truly helped my mental health issues. So if you suffer from depression and feel like talk therapy and pharmaceutical medication hasn't been enough, or you know someone who may benefit from using psychedelics for mental health purposes, then this is definitely the video and channel for you. On that note, I have participated in 6 ayahuasca ceremonies. I am very new to the plant medicine community. I know tons of people here in Costa Rica who have participated in dozens and dozens of ceremonies, so I'm definitely a newbie when it comes to ayahuasca. However, I'm very passionate about talking to those who suffer from depression about plant medicines such as ayahuasca, since I've experienced firsthand how helpful it is to combat mental health issues. When I was going through the most severe episode of depression in my entire life, I became absolutely desperate for relief, and I decided to turn to ayahuasca. I attended Rhythmia Life Advancement Center, which is super famous for the Aya ceremonies here in Guanacaste, Costa Rica. And more recently, I found a plant medicine home not too far away from where I live in Tamarindo. Here are some photos of me at my last Aya ceremony that I attended that I just wanted to share with you. So let's get into it. What is ayahuasca exactly? When I started reflecting on my own personal experiences and doing research on what exactly ayahuasca is, I found this question to be really daunting. Ayahuasca is a very complex substance and psychedelic experience. What makes ayahuasca so interesting is that it has both scientific and spiritual components, making the psychedelic very unusual and unique. I could spend a lot of time investigating the spiritual aspect of this medicine because it's absolutely fascinating, but to be concise, I will only be looking at ayahuasca from a scientific perspective in this video. Okay, so recently, in the last few years, ayahuasca has been in the news more than ever. I have seen other people on YouTube talk about ayahuasca. I also hear about celebrities talking about plant medicine. Apparently, Megan Fox, Chelsea Handler, and Will Smith have all participated in ayahuasca. There's more and more retreats being visited by Americans, Canadians, and Europeans, especially here in Costa Rica. You may have heard of Rhythmia. That's 20 minutes from where I live and where I first drank Aya in March of 2001. There's also Soltera that is well known, but what is ayahuasca exactly? Currently, there's a very interesting duality between the very sacred traditional Amazonian practices of ayahuasca and the Western use of ayahuasca. But I believe in order to stay true and honor ayahuasca, we need to always acknowledge and learn the indigenous approach and beliefs with this medicine, and really all medicines. Ayahuasca has been used in South America for thousands of years, coming from many different tribes in Peru, Colombia, Ecuador. But that being said, because it comes from many different countries and indigenous tribes, ayahuasca goes by many different names. It can commonly be referred to as the mother of all plants, the vine of death, and La Purga due to its very strong tendency to make you purge. Other names are Aya, Yahe, although technically Yahe is a little bit different than ayahuasca, and Huasca. The word ayahuasca itself comes from the official language of the Inca Empire, which is still spoken in various parts of Peru and Ecuador. Huasca and the word ayahuasca means rope or vine, hence the nicknames the vine of the soul or the vine of death. Why the vine of death? Well, ayahuasca tends to have very strong ego-dissolving effects. Yeah, it's very common to experience an ego death while on ayahuasca. To fully understand ayahuasca, we must understand its psychoactive ingredient, NN-DMT. NN-DMT is one of the most powerful psychedelics on earth and has been named the spirit molecule by Rick Strassman, who was essentially the first person to investigate the effects on DMT, speaking about the mystical and near-death experiences it produced. Now, NN-DMT stands for NN-dimethyltryptamine. Tryptamine. Yeah. DMT has various forms, which also means that they can be consumed in different methods. The method in which DMT is consumed alters the duration of the psychedelic experience. So, for instance, if you smoke bufo, that journey typically lasts about 15 minutes, while on ayahuasca, it is many hours. DMT can be smoked, injected, or ingested orally. However, specifically ayahuasca is a liquid, so you drink it. This is a picture of ayahuasca I took at my last ceremony I attended. Yes, it's the dark substance in the plastic water bottle. Let's talk about the effects of DMT. So there's many different effects brought on with DMT, and many DMT trips can often be very meaningful and even spiritual in nature. There's so many different effects of DMT, so I will list them here. Very common experiences include interacting with interdimensional entities, traveling to other dimensions, ego deaths, and even having sacred surgery. Sacred surgery is a fascinating conversation within itself. Talking about ayahuasca in the scientific sense is very different than talking about ayahuasca from a spiritual lens. With a DMT trip, the scientific component of the trip and the spiritual component of the trip really get blended together. Depending on who you're talking to, people will view an ayahuasca journey very differently. Scientists may say that seeing other interdimensional beings, entities, and other dimensions all together is simply a reaction from the drug. But when you speak to a shaman or someone who regularly drinks Aya, many would agree that these visual hallucinations have a much more profound spiritual cause and meaning. While many may feel that these mystical experiences are simply due to the DMT, many people who take DMT or drink ayahuasca believe these experiences to be very real. Commonly, DMT creates outer body experiences, even experiences that feel like near-death experiences. In fact, a study showed that regardless of the DMT dosage one was given, each participant felt that they had an experience that dissolved their sense of ego and that they had transcended their body. it is clear that DMT triggers experiences that closely resemble what it may be like to die. So, on that note, it's also very common to experience pintas. Pintas are super abstract psychedelic visuals such as geometric patterns, crazy shapes and colors. I've experienced pintas a lot while on Aya, and they're absolutely beautiful. Some even say this experience of seeing pintas helps with depression. Does DMT naturally exist in our brain? Now, one of the first scientists to have ever studied NN-DMT, Rick Strassman, who also coined the nickname for DMT, the spirit molecule, theorized that people actually produce trace amounts of DMT naturally in their brains. However, it is a mystery why we have trace amounts of DMT in our bodies because the function is unknown. Strassman theorized that DMT is created in the pineal gland, while others disagree, saying that DMT is not specifically made in the pineal gland. There have even been trace amounts of DMT found in our cerebral spinal fluid, nose, teeth, eyes, and lungs. It is believed that DMT is released in our brains during the death process when we're actually dying, which would explain why we have ego deaths when ingesting ayahuasca. Okay, so we talked about the main ingredient of ayahuasca, NN-DMT. But what is ayahuasca exactly? Ayahuasca is a psychoactive brew. However, in order for ayahuasca to be psychoactive, it needs 2 plants to be brewed together and ingested. The 2 ingredients from these 2 separate plants allows ayahuasca to create its mind-altering effects. So, we said that DMT is able to be ingested orally, like in the case of ayahuasca. However, there is a key difference in ingredients when drinking DMT and smoking DMT. When you're drinking DMT, you need a monoamine oxidase inhibitor to stop the body from breaking down DMT. Without this, the body physically would not be able to materialize the effects of the psychedelic because the body would break down the DMT, not allowing it to access the nervous system. So where do we get this inhibitor? The inhibitor is derived naturally from a vine. So this vine is combined with this vine. Now this vine contains the primary psychoactive NN-DMT. Therefore, when they come together, the 2 ingredients are able to create ayahuasca, the very strong psychedelic brew. Specifically, these 2 plants will be boiled in water for hours, creating the brew. I just wanted to say that this recipe is very basic and generic. Every tribe creates ayahuasca differently, and it changes the psychedelic journey and even the taste. I definitely hear people talk about their preferences to drink with a specific tribe or shaman, whether it's because of the specific brew or other aspects of the tribe's ceremony that they prefer. So the whole concept of psychotropic release is to speak about the relationship between mental health issues and psychedelics and other holistic means to healing. So since we are discussing ayahuasca, I need to acknowledge the potential it has to treat depression. Some studies regarding ayahuasca and depression have been completed. The findings conclude that ayahuasca creates rapid antidepressant effects, treats severe depression, and even lowers levels of suicidal ideation. This really speaks to me because I am someone who has struggled with suicidal ideation for about 10 years. So while there are scientific findings that agree ayahuasca can really benefit from those suffering from depression, many findings are anecdotal. But I will say that in the last 16 months that I've been in the plant medicine community, I have met a ton of people who have personally told me that ayahuasca has drastically helped them with their depression, anxiety, and more, including myself. I think a large part of this is because ayahuasca has the ability to let a person relive and resolve past traumatic events from their life. It allows you to revisit childhood trauma, view relationships in a whole other perspective, and more. This experience is definitely not easy or pleasant, but if you could go to the very root of a problem that was causing you emotional distress, wouldn't you do it? I'm wondering if you would ever consider doing ayahuasca. Please comment below. I'd love to hear why or why not. If you like this video, I'd really appreciate you liking this video. And if you want to hear more about plant medicine, psychedelics, and mental health, please subscribe.